So, Julie, before we start, can I offer you something to drink, some antipasto, something?
I made myself a tea, so it's all good.
Oh, all right. Wonderful. That's great.
Yeah.
So I have to tell you, as an Italian, I
Yes.
especially liked episode two, of course, in Novi Italia.
Yes.
And of course, it broke my heart when I saw what happened to D'Antipasto. But
When she destroys it with camembert.
it still looked delicious. But I was wondering, because it was so fun to see your character, improvising, in order to make it look not Italian. So I was
Yes.
wondering, do you remember, like a cooking disaster from your own kitchen?
Not like that. I mean, I made up that story because I thought it was extremely a funny setup, but I'm a very good cook. So there's never really a disaster in my kitchen because I always figure out a way to make it good. So I'm very good with food. So I like a disaster in that sense. No, never.
All right. Good. Great to hear.
Yes.
I have to say, there were so many things that kind of reminded me of myself and my own life a little bit. For example, my mom also, has three kids with three different guys, for example. And
like the character of Elle.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly like that. And also, I also kind of connected with Adam, when he told Anne that he doesn't really like smartphones because they kind of feel like a distraction from the present and stuff.
Life. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was wondering, what can be like your biggest distraction on a set?
Well, phones are definitely a distraction. For me, sometimes what slows me down is when people are saying we have to rush.
Ooh, right. Oh.
Like sometimes like the pressure of rushing is actually making everyone mess up. If anything, I think when people show up at the wrong time or in your middle of the take and everything's going well and you're about to be done in like 5 minutes,
yeah.
And then someone shows up and says, we have to be done in 5 minutes. I'm like, dude, I'm done in 5 minutes. Just don't stop me from being done in 5 minutes. And it's happened so many times, in my life as a filmmaker is something very common. I think some people don't understand that actually, not being pushy is actually like make people work faster, sometimes, they don't understand, but it's a typical film set kind of situation,
All right,
so that's distracting. But also I get annoyed when too many people are on their cell phones and they're not listening, so sometimes I crack the whip a little bit on set and I'm like, okay, cell phones away. Let's try to, especially when we're in a rush, it's like we have to be careful with that because it's so easy. I'm the same way, I get sucked in by this. It's so easy to get sucked in by it,
I actually stopped watching certain movies with some friends because I hate it when when you watch a movie and then your friends are like on the phone and stuff. I feel like
when
you watch a movie, it's really you have to be there 100% without any.
Yeah. I'm starting to put rules in my house with at the table, like we don't eat and look at the phone. This is banned from my house. We don't, we don't have the phone unless there's an emergency call when we watch a movie. We don't, now I'm starting to make rules in my house, and especially for my kid. And my kid hates phones. Actually, he hates me when I'm on the phone.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. All right. So
it's the new generation of kids. They're tired of social media. They're tired of, I think some of the kids, my son doesn't, he really wants to have only certain times with social media. Not like he wants me to tell him no more than half an hour per day,
Yeah. Julie, there are so many topics in the show that I really enjoy, and because, it's of course about friendship. It's about decisions, about life-changing decisions, about making decisions you regret, decisions you want to undo. And, it was already in episode 1, it was kind of heartbreaking when we saw Elle talking about, how much time she wasted and that she actually wants it back.
Yes.
And I feel like we all have moments like that in our lives, of course. And I was wondering, how do you make sure, you know, in your life, you don't waste too much time? How do you make sure you make use of every single second you have?
Well, you know, it's impossible to do that. But, you know, what I do is I avoid, like, I see when I get sucked in stuff that makes me waste my time, which is some social media stuff, which is okay to do when you're in the middle of promoting a show. You can do a little extra because it's not useful. But like, I really usually when I'm on holiday, I don't look at social media during the time I'm on holiday. I don't, you know, also like that's a waste of time. It can be okay when it's minimal, but it can be a waste of time. You know, I don't play video games. Like I was hooked to like chess.com for a while, and I took it out of my phone because I don't want to play chess. Even if it's a good game, I don't want to play chess on the net every time I have a second. I want to go and write something. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
right.
so I try to also what I tried to do in my life is that but you know what? Like yesterday, for example, I didn't do anything. And I was like so angry at myself. I didn't write. I didn't do anything productive, you know, and sometimes it happens. Sometimes we need those days as well. But that's why, but you have to be vigilant because it's easy, you know. I see my husband wasting days and days and hours on chess.com.
Wow. So, all right. So he's like,
yeah. And I'm like, you got to take it out of your phone. I told him 20 times and, you know, he hasn't done it yet. So, you know, I'm planning on taking it out.
all right. Okay. So you're going to delete his score, his high score.
yeah. I'm gonna wreck his score on chess.com.
You just mentioned social media, and of course, in the show, social media is also becoming very important for your character. Kind of puts some pressure on her, and I was wondering if you ever felt that social media is putting some pressure on you as well as an artist.
Well, you know, I've never really been part of it. I don't have a publicist that handles my social media. I have a very small, you know, following, you know, on you know, the social media stuff. I post when there's a work related stuff, a little bit of personal stuff, but not really that personal. It is true that some people have celebrity just through social media. They don't exist. They don't do anything else, you know? Yeah, so it's a new thing. I mean, it's crazy to be famous for, you know, posting things, you know, and why not? You know, I'm not saying it's bad, but, you know, there are people working really hard to achieve things in life, you know, and but this is the world we live in, you know, it's a world of fast consumption and, you know, and it's gotten worse and worse and worse. And, you know, we'll see what happens, but I hope it will generate also movements that are positive, like, you know, for the environment. And, you know, it's not all bad. It's really bad when it's QAnon, but it's, exactly. You know, but it's not all bad when it's, you know, Greta posting something about, you know, the environment or something like that. So, you know, it all depends, you know, what it's used for.
Exactly.
But it's also, it can be a weapon as well. I think it's been weaponized by some politicians. So, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. And
that's very dangerous because it's so easy to manipulate people. And you know what you realize with social media and all this disinformation is that so many people are vulnerable to it because they don't, like I see my dad, who is a very smart man, and I looked at his emails and I see all those, you know, newsletter calling itself Bio Life or blah, blah, Health Life. And in fact, you go through it and then every 10 email, it's an anti-vax, anti-government, trying to destroy Western society or at least, you know, like some kind of democracy, like trying to basically put a mess in countries that are functioning, you know, like they did in the US. So it's very worrisome, and you have to be very vigilant that people that are not informed are not being utilized, you know, by those social media, by those disinformation. I mean, it's disastrous in the US right now. People believe things that are nonsense, and it's very, very serious. It's a very serious problem. I mean, everyone knows it's a serious problem, but it's a bigger problem. So anyway, in the show, I talk about it a little bit with fun about social media because my character is trying to have social media page, and she's really bad at it, and she's not the right person to do this. So I had a lot of fun. I did the fun version of it, and then there's another scene where my character meets a celebrity who happens to be, I mean, I don't want to,
exactly, yes,
give it away, but it's quite of a funny situation. And it's a kind of like the character is a bit of a version of me, Julie Delpy, if I had given Hollywood completely, so I'm like,
yeah.
So it was fun to do that. I had fun with it. Of course, social media can be a weapon and it's very dark side of it, but there's also a funny side to it and a very playful side to it. So
absolutely. I have to tell you that, that moment in episode 10, when you meet the celebrity, that was just so unexpected and fun. Seriously. Yeah. It was like, I never saw that coming, It's just,
and at first it's an idea I had because I was looking for a celebrity, right? And it was in the middle of COVID and no one wanted to play a mean version of themselves. Like I reached out to other actors, right? And eventually I told the producer, I was like, fuck it. Why not this celebrity? And he was like, that's funny. And I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's go nuts. Let's go for it. And I think, so it came out of my frustration in a way, you know what I mean? But then I rewrote everything and made it work, but it was actually, it came out of my, I was like, fuck everybody. I was like, sorry, I'm wearing like a truck driver or whatever it's called. But I was like, forget it. Let's just do this instead. And I think it worked out for the best, in the end.
Oh yeah, for sure. So the others were like afraid that people will believe that they are really like that in real life?
Then? Yeah, I think they were nervous about playing themselves, like a mean version of themselves. I think some people didn't want to take the risk of being exposed to COVID just for a cameo, which I completely understand because no one was vaccinated. It was August last year. There was no vaccination.
Oh,
everyone, right. We were working in a state of, it's not easy. We were being tested 3 times a week. It was very risky, so, I'm sure celebrities don't want to take the extra risk for no reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So I used the celebrity I had that was near me.
Yeah. So, Julie, very early on in the show, there's also, the birthday sequence, of course, with Yasmin. And she, when she's trying to get a new job, she's telling her potential boss that whenever she celebrates her birthday, she thinks about where she is in life and where she wants to be in the future. And I was wondering, whenever you celebrate your birthday, do you usually think about all the stuff you still want to achieve as a person and as an artist, or do you, think about the stuff you wish you would have done?
I really don't like celebrating my birthday. First of all, I'm born 21st of December, which is right before Christmas. So usually people are not really interested in coming over.
Yeah, I know.
So my birthday has never been a happy one. No, I don't like birthdays. I actually do reflect, but I try to kind of make it just a party and not to make it a big deal. Yeah. Because or a party or a dinner, a fun dinner. But I have to say I've spent many of my birthdays, because it's near Christmas and I share my son, many of my birthday alone, eating soup from a can, also by choice in a weird way, without my kid, which is the most painful part, to not be able to celebrate your birthday without your child. And I would say half my birthdays, I don't have my son because I'm separated. So I think of my birthdays as a time where I don't like it. Like, I don't like my birthdays. It's very hard for me to enjoy it. And it's not because I'm getting older. It's just because it's not a happy time. So it's like, the sun comes out, in Paris, especially at like 10 o'clock and it's gone by 4. So you want to kill, I think it's the day people kill themselves the most. So I'm personal. I think for other people, it can be more, more a fun celebration thing,
Yeah, everyone has like a different relationship to it, right?
Yeah, I mean, mine, the date is just the worst, couldn't be worse than that. So
I mentioned the decisions in the shows earlier in this interview, and the show actually perfectly shows that you. Because the thing about decisions, it can be very interesting. You make like one bad decision, and then the next decision is like a good one. Like we see, the whole story with the dog, for example.
Yeah. Well, she called because she was annoyed, and then the repercussions are terrible, and she feels like a terrible person, but then she fixes it, but then she gets caught. I mean, it's kind of funny. I just wanted to show the character of Yasmin being someone that's so bored with her life. Like, she gave up a career, and she's probably the brightest of the four women, and she's not doing anything. She's the character that has the most, I think, regrets, or not regrets, because I think she was happy to raise a son, but she's the one with probably intellectually the most potential. And I've seen that sometimes with people, with women that are extremely bright, is that, you have a kid and you kind of stop doing things for a while, and then it becomes it becomes your life. And she's at that place. So she has a lot of anxiety. She's stressed out. She's angry. And I think she becomes a better person when she starts working, when she starts becoming herself again, and I like to see that. Like, suddenly she's not, having fits. She's not angry. She's not, she goes back into her element of being, she's becomes herself again in a way, and I think there's a lot to say about women that are not achieving what they want in life. And then there's a lot of anxiety coming from it. So she's full of anxiety because of that. She has panic attacks because of the fact that she's not achieving what she wants,
Absolutely. And speaking of that, because there's also a line where she says that, like in college, we pretend to be someone we are not. And then somehow, one day we bury the person we wanted to become.
We wish. Yeah.
And I was wondering, what would you say, how far away are you, from the person you thought you would become as a teenager?
I was coming from such a shitty world. I mean, I'm saying my parents were, actors in theater. There was no money. I had no idea that I would, I was writing since I'm 9 years old, stories, and I was very, very creative from an early age, but I had no dream for my future. What I achieved, I had there's not even a role model of people that I did what I did. There's very few people, maybe Agnès Varda, and, but very, very, so few, in fact, that I couldn't allow myself to dream about this. When people, when male friends of mine said, oh, I dreamed I would be this great writer and do this and that, I'm like, great for you. Because you know what? The truth is, I had no dream. I just was like, I'm going to write and write and write and write. And I'm going to act now. And eventually I'll be directing my films. And I was like, I come from a very humble background financially. So it made me a little bit like, a horse or a cow on a field, moving forward, like this, kind of like every single day is a new day, and I work harder and I keep on working. And I've had so much no's, so much resistance to what I wanted to do, that every time I achieve something, I'm like, okay, I worked so hard. Like this TV show, for example, I started in 2013. It was in the hands of one studio who treated me like, really like the lowest possible. Then another studio who wasn't, great either. I mean, outside of letting me take it away from them, so eventually I was able to do it. But it's years and years and years of people saying, no, it's stupid. You're stupid. You'll never do it. No, you'll never be a director. No, you'll never be an actress. No, you're ugly. No, you're shit. No, you're stupid. I mean, all the time. My life has just been that. So of course, when you raise like that, like with so much negative, and my parents were supportive, but everything, the world around me was not, or telling me, I remember when I was 23 years old, I had just moved to LA, and this director was casting his film. And I remember him telling me, I told him, he was telling me how he was casting his film and how he was having sex with all the actresses, or at least promising to have sex with all the actors he was casting. I told him that's disgusting and that's disgraceful. And he said, well, you're an idiot and you'll never succeed because you don't know how it works. And I'm like, okay, fine, goodbye. But I was, but that stuff was happening in the early 90s in Hollywood. You could say that to women. You could actually say that and keep on eating your Chinese food, So it was really, really crazy. But, I remember so much like people telling me that I wouldn't do anything. So I had no, as a teenager, the world, I was not even allowing myself to dream. I was just working hard. That's all I was doing, no dream in my world. You know what I mean? So I started writing. And I remember when I started writing, I was like, I have to write because it will save my life. And, there's this story I love, which is called The Arabian Nights with Scheherazade. She's married to a man who's going to kill her in the morning if she doesn't come up with stories that never end. Do you know that story? It's a beautiful book.
But I will look it up.
I don't know, from maybe 5-6 centuries ago. It's something you study in school in France. It's called The Arabian Night. It's really, really beautiful. 1001 Night in French, Les Mille et Nuits. And she's a woman that tells a story to a man who's going to kill her in the morning. But the stories are so interesting that the man keeps on delaying killing her every day. And I started writing like that, meaning I thought writing would save my life. So it became and it's funny because I write mostly comedy, so you wouldn't think it comes from such a dark place, but it does. That's the funny part.
And what about, because I can imagine, when it comes down to career decisions, everyone, so many people believe they know better what's best for you, than yourself. Like what you just said, with the director, you told him no, bye and stuff, but other people wouldn't be able to do that. And I was wondering, whenever you've made career decisions very early on in your career, how did you make sure that the only voice you're listening to is your own?
It's not easy. It's not easy. And many times I would look at people succeed that had done what I was not ready to do. Mm-hmm. And it would make me break inside, and I would sometimes drink a lot. Now I'm very careful, but I was no drugs because I never liked drugs, but I would drink a little too much. I would get sick quickly, so I would not go very long like this because I don't have, my body just is bad for you. So I would get sick very quickly. But, every time I tried to be an alcoholic, I turned out to be sick a few months later. So I had to stop. But, I thought of, it's very hard when you're a young woman, you refuse to play the game, but you see other people playing the game that are getting very successful. It, of course, makes you feel like shit because you're like, oh, this is how it works and I'm the idiot, So you try to numb yourself. So luckily I was able to escape in writing, in art, in music, in drawing, in making collages, in creativity, which is what I learned as a child from my parents because we didn't have money. So I didn't have toys. I only had my own creativity as a child. So I would escape trouble, and I had a lot of stuff difficult in my life by being creative. So being creative is really what saved me from not collapsing, from, and from listening to my own voice, Yeah. It's helpful, That's why I really push people to give their kids as many possibilities creatively as possible, because it really can help heal and keep your own. And also, I have to say, my parents, even though they were crazy, they were always saying that I was right and the teachers were wrong. They were always defending me.
That's lovely. That's great.
Yeah. They were crazy. They were nutcase, but they were always supportive. They're like, you're great. They're stupid. You're great. They're stupid. So it gives you a strength, this kind of love of support, that even if you're facing demons later in life, you still have that little voice of your mommy who said, you're right, my sweetie, they're wrong. And then they would hug me and kiss me. And it was a lot of love, even though they were nutcase, in other ways, but they were very loving. So that's really the key, I think, to my inner voice, is the love that I got.
That's wonderful. Because of course, if they would have told you, no, I'm sorry, the teacher is right.
And you're shit. Yeah, then you lose faith in yourself, Right. And I'm always very careful with my kid. I'm always like, you're right. I mean, maybe sometimes it's wrong to do it, but I feel it's very important, to always defend your child. Always take his side. I think the minute you take the side of your kid, you win, because, even if you could be wrong sometimes, and sometimes I say, no, you shouldn't do this, because, like, for example, dangerous stuff or stuff like that, I'm like, no, this is wrong. But, that's different, but like when about like, also about creativity and everything, I always defend him, always defend him.
That is great. And just the way it should be, in my opinion.
Yes. No, but that's the only way to raise children and make them, strong human beings, is to really protect them, from people trying to wear out their inner self, their ego, Absolutely. You don't want to make them spoiled. My son is completely unspoiled, but he's actually, the least spoiled kid, but he's emotionally very, not spoiled, but very protected,
Yeah. And Julie, I also felt a little bit sorry, for your husband in the show, when he character, in France, I could be so successful, and here nobody cares about my work. And I was wondering if that is something you can relate to, if you ever actually believed that you could achieve more in France than in Hollywood.
I've chosen to be in Hollywood. In a way, it's so not my world, but I end up working here, and it ends up being like this weird hybrid cultural thing that I've kind of created for myself, which is in a way unique, because I am French, but I'm also very American in my sense of humor, my way of thinking in some ways, but I stay French as well and European. So in a way, by becoming this hybrid, my work becomes more unique, I think, because of this double thing. But I never thought, oh, yeah, of course, if I had stayed in France, it would have been maybe a different road and maybe easier at times. But I like when it's different. I like when things don't follow what's expected of you, and I think it's always more interesting to have a life that no one expects, and because I had no dreams, I never decided, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I just kept on going based on my creative impulse,
This is great, because so many people don't do what they want to do. They do what others tell them to do. I
actually did everything people were telling me not to do. I remember when I went to film school, I remember this French director said, oh, but if you become a director, no director will want to work with you, because, you're not going to be a passive, like, desirable woman anymore. You'll be too active and it will kill the desire. And I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to film school. When I went to the US, people were like, no one succeeds in the US. When I did this, every time it's been a negative, people are telling me, like you said, like, you should do this, you should do that. When agents were telling me you should be going to auditions every day, I would be writing. I never do what people tell me to do. And weirdly enough, that's my road. That's mon chemin.
But that's the best way to go, because I feel like, when someone else tells an actor, you should not become a director, then maybe that person says, okay, then I do not become a director. They just take it that way, and then they don't become what they actually just are trying to achieve.
But it's very hard, because the pressure is really hard. And I've been fired from agencies because I do my own thing. But in a way, for me, what's important is freedom, and freedom is a very difficult thing to achieve nowadays. So people think they're free because they have money, but they're not free. Freedom is keeping on doing your own stuff, and everyone will criticize you. I mean, I've been, I worked 8 years on a project, and then people, one critic shows up and trashes it because he's not in a good mood that day.
Yeah, exactly.
I know our society, by the way, our society still accepts that. I think, I think it's getting to a place where it's like, wait a minute, is it really, really ethical to do that? Like, it's becoming a little weird, But you're like, what are you ethics to destroy someone's work for 20 years just in one critic that you, by the way, you didn't even watch the whole film or something? Like, really, it's bad, Like critics used to be people that were actually saying that they love something and not just like trashing a film after 20 minutes watching it. But now there are people doing that, on blogs and everything. So it's complicated. It's getting really complicated, I think, and unfair. And also those people sometimes have money from bigger companies that they will defend movies. I mean, it's really twisted now. It's very rotten. But, it's not like the time of the Cahiers du Cinéma and stuff from the 60s and stuff where people were idolizing, directors and, making people discover things and not stop people from watching things. It was the opposite. Critics were supposed to make people want to see things, But now it's turned into this, oh, I hate when women speak their mind, so let me trash the film, or trash the series. I've had that so many times. Like the misogyny that's kind of hiding behind the critic, But, I've had so many times that, the racism. I had racist comments on, the best one was on 2 Days in New York. There was a bluntly racist critic. I was like, oh my God, that's so racist. But at the time, it was like 10 years ago. No one even noticed that it was racist. I'm not going to get into it. It's so annoying. But anyway, my boyfriend was black in the show played by Chris Rock in the film. But anyway, at the time, it was still acceptable. But misogyny is still acceptable. I can tell you that in many, many, many ways. So, no, basically, I don't know. I forgot what I was going to talk about. I got sidetracked by, I get angry sometimes and I forget about what I'm talking about.
Critics.
Yeah, but whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't exist in the long run because in the long run, people remember work and not, I mean, no one cares about critics, of 20 years ago. And, unless it's really beautiful written and people, and it's really about making people want to see the film. If it's really ugly and negative, people don't even remember that. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, you spend your life, following your own voice, and then, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, and, and you keep on moving forward.
Exactly. Julie, I want to thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.